Hi there, I'm Varan Batu.
And I'm Dushan Karvalda, and welcome to another episode on our podcast, The Weekly Dose of High School, where we will be guiding you through the life of a high school student while speaking to knowledgeable people in the industry.
Welcome to our second episode. Today we're here with Julian Hoffman, an admissions advisor, ABS advisor, and an essay editor.
So, to start off today's podcast, would you please like to introduce yourself to our audience, Julian?
Hey, everybody. Nice to be here on this podcast. Thanks for having me. My name is Julian. And as stated before, I am an admissions advisor, apps advisor, and an essay editor. I've been working in college admissions for almost 5 years, maybe almost six, actually. And I'm looking forward to providing some insight to you all.
Great. Without further ado, let's get into today's episode.
All right, Julian. Since college essays are an important factor in common applications, do you have any advice for high school students who are planning to write one?
Absolutely, my friends. So I think my biggest piece of advice would be to plan ahead. Now, this is really, really important because you don't want to wait until the last minute to write your essays or write any type of essay for a college application. This is probably the most common mistake because a lot of students tend to procrastinate, which I get it, it happens to the best of us. But that's the number one thing you want to avoid is avoid procrastination, because a lot of the time students will wait until the last minute to start doing their essays. And when you wait until the last minute, that becomes a problem because not only are you writing a rushed essay that may result in a lot of grammatical errors, but you're also not going to be able to tell your story to the fullest extent. So anything you really want to say, you run the risk of forgetting that you wanted to say that or forgetting what you wanted to say in the first place. So it really will make your application a lot less solid than what it really should be. Now, when you're planning, you really want to start thinking about themes and topics. So you want to think about events and experiences in your life that have made you who you are. Now, a few of the most important questions that I like to ask or that I like students to think about is, why are you who you are? And what makes you you? That's what you want to start planning and thinking about when you're writing your essays.
Well said, Julian. So, would you like just quickly define, like, when you say start early, was that a couple of weeks ahead, couple of months ahead, or what exactly?
Honestly, the earlier the better. If you are a rising senior, it's always best to start the summer before your senior year. Now, that's really important because you have to think when you're a senior, there's going to be a lot of things coming your way. That senior year, I'm not kidding you, it's really going to fly by. So you're going to have, within the first few months of your college applications when school starts, you're going to be meeting new people. You're going to be getting all of these assignments for your classes, especially if you're in a lot of weighted courses. You're also going to have dances, homecoming, winter ball, those are going to come up. And you're going to have other things that you want to do with your friends and your other family members, and parties with maybe your family members. So there's going to be a lot of things that are going to start coming your way, and not to mention finals, tests, papers. So the more you can start earlier, the better. So really aim for summer. Really try to get a lot of your stuff done in the summer.
I agree with you there. And now, as a college consultant and as an essay editor, how important do you think is it that an essay receives a second pair of eyes before it's submitted?
I think it's always a good idea to get somebody else to review your essay. Now, you have to be really careful with this because a lot of students tend to think that the more people that look at their essay, the better. It becomes really difficult, and it's going to make your life a lot harder. Sending it to mom and dad, sending it to my best friend who graduated, and then my English teacher and my Spanish teacher. You don't want to have so many people because you are going to overwhelm yourself with so many ideas and topics that people think should be in your essay. It's just going to make a lot of extra work for yourself that you don't need. Because when you're writing essays, let me tell you, depending on how many schools, there's a lot.
As an essay editor, Do you think that college essays are more vital to an application than extracurriculars, recommendation letters, grades, or the SAT?
No, because you really have to think. Although essays are really vital to your application, you have to remember that the college application process is a holistic review. You are reviewed holistically, which means that everything in your application is being considered. That's your grades, your extracurriculars, your exam scores, your SAT scores if you're submitting them, and your essays. So there's not much more weightage on something as opposed to the other besides your academics. That's about 50% of what is looked at. Now, the essays are really designed to give a full picture of who you are. So let's say you have, for example, some sort of underlying circumstance. That's something you want to discuss and you want to let the readers know. So let's say maybe you were in, I don't know, your sophomore year, separated from your family and put into foster care. That's something pretty serious that might cause a potential hiccup in your grades or your extracurriculars. And it's important to let the readers know that. Now, I think it also depends on the circumstance of the student. Usually though, they are mostly looked at in a holistic manner. It's not so much like, well, their grades aren't so great, but they have amazing essays, so let's say yes to them. It's not really how it works. They look at everything. Those essays are really there and are designed to tell your unique story and why you belong at that university.
Thank you, Julian.
All right, Julian, now I would like to ask you that something Brian was also asking you earlier. It's that what should an applicant put in their essays that will make their essay shine out from the other ones? Should it be extracurriculars or something else?
So again, it really depends on your story. The most important thing for a student is that they need to show who they are. You need to show readers, admissions readers, why you are who you are and what makes you you, kind of like what I said, earlier in the podcast. Now, if you talk solely about your extracurriculars, that's not really giving the admissions much to work with because they don't want to see a robot. They want to see a human. They want to see you. They want to see the things that make you happy. They want to see the things that make you unique. So I wouldn't necessarily write only about my extracurriculars because it's not going to give a full picture of who you are. If your extracurricular maybe had a part in who you are, maybe dance is something that was so inspiring to you and it, gave you this motivation that you never had before, then yes, I would talk about my extracurricular. I would talk about extracurriculars if they had a certain meaning to me, if they brought something unique and different to my life, if they allowed me to see the world in a different way. So when it comes to what you should write, you really need to think about what you're interested in and out of school, be it something you've done in an extracurricular or something even just completely outside of school. So if you have any values that are important to you, those are something that you want to discuss. If you have extenuating circumstances, maybe you're taking care of a sibling who's really ill. Maybe you're taking care of a family. Maybe you live 50 miles from the school and you have to take the bus. There are so many things that make your story unique that you need to show those admissions readers. Now, when it comes to those extenuating circumstances, it doesn't have to be a sob story. It doesn't have to be something like, woe is me, everything was really challenging, hear my story, let me in. That's not what you want to do. But if there was a hardship, you really want to note that, especially if there's something that you went through and it inspired you to do something, or it really gave you a different outlook on yourself. Those are the things you want to talk about. So really think about taking your extracurriculars and thinking how they have shaped you, what they've taught you, or even just about life in general. What outside of school inspired me? What outside of school made me see the world differently? How am I unique? How are these stories special and unique to me? Those are the things you need to consider.
Well said, Julian. Thank you.
Hey, Julian, I have an exception. I have another question. So I know a few people who have made into Ivy Leagues with very well written college essays, but like with poor GPAs and a relatively low SAT score. So why do you think these colleges still allow these students to be accepted into their universities?
That's a really good question. And it depends. Honestly, it really depends on the student, their circumstances, and what they went through. Think about what I just said in my last response. A lot of students have these extenuating circumstances. A lot of students have these really challenging situations. And it's important to remember every student's story is different, no matter their GPA or their scores, anything. Now, you have to think that some of these students that are applying come from very low income areas where there's a lot of violence, or they have the odds stacked against them. They have limited access to opportunity. But in those experiences, it taught them about the world. It taught them other seriously important values that are important to being a college student. Those are really important. These essays that these students may have written very well show their growth. They show a better understanding of the world and individuals around them. So maybe they had these unique life experiences that taught them these very important concepts about life. And that's why it's so important to present your authentic self and share your story, not what you assume schools want to hear. You can't think about this school prides itself on its engineering program, therefore I need to show all of my engineering experience. It's not about that. You need to really show who you are to admissions readers so they get an understanding of who you are. And when they read your stuff, they see a genuine human, because that's what they want. They want real people. They want students that have experiences. They want students that have learned about the world, that know what their passions are. When they read your essays, they want to see that they know you. They want to get to know you. And I think that's why maybe some of these students may have gotten acceptances is, maybe they had some more experiences. Maybe they had very specific and unique experiences that showed them a new way to see the world.
Thank you, Julian.
All right, so still sticking on the topic of essays, I know you just talked about how if an applicant has any extreme circumstances, they should mention it, or if they've done any projects or extracurriculars that they're really passionate about, they should mention those for sure. However, do you think there's any like formula, quote unquote, or like a method that all applicants should utilize in their essays to make the best rounded essays?
So I think when it comes to a formula, the number one thing you really need to do is number one, plan ahead. Just like I said in the beginning, that's really, really important. You want to review the questions. You don't want to just look at an essay and think, I guess I'll talk about this. You want to look and see which of the essays speak to you. You want to review them early and find which one is going to tell your story the best. Make outlines. Once you've chosen the essays that you feel will best describe who you are and what you have done, make outlines. I cannot stress it enough. Outline your essays. It's just like an English paper. Make the outlines because they will allow you to map out what you want to say. They allow you to put down your ideas and your thoughts before actually writing your essays. That way, if you see that you're all of these outlines and you say, well, this doesn't really define me, that'll tell you that's probably not the essay you should be writing. And the next and final step, I think, is honestly free write. Write what is on your mind. Write from your heart. It is so important to write from your heart. Write what is inside of you. Show the readers who you are. And when you're free writing, don't think of the word count. Just write as much as you can. Get all of your thoughts onto the paper, because what you can do after that is you can say, okay, this thought is a little too out there. Maybe I'll pull it out. But when you're writing, don't look at the word count, because if you look at an essay that say needs to be 350 words, you're going to look at that essay and you're going to be trying to write and you're going to say, oh, I can't write it. I have to write a little too less because there's 350 words, but you want to make sure that you just write. So maybe you'll have 500 words, but it's easier to cut words than it is to try to add them in. So plan ahead, review the questions, make outlines, and free write, and write from your heart.
Amazing advice, Julian. I think that is all for our podcast, and now Varun will take it away.
Thank you, Julian. Well, that's it for today on episode 2 of Weekly Dose of High School. Hope you guys enjoy listening to Julian speak about college essays.
And also, guys, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to our podcast, whether you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, SoundCloud, or even YouTube. We are on all those platforms, and we upload weekly episodes, so make sure you subscribe so you never miss an upload. Until then, take it easy, guys.